All right, and we are back to solving. Now, we're going to really put everything that we've talked about together in these problems, all right? So you can see that we're still on standard 10, right? Solving, right? I can solve linear, absolute value, quadratic, and exponential equations, right? Now, just to simplify things, we're going to not do the graphs. I know it says sketch a create graph here, but what we're going to say is that if you need to do that to verify how many solutions you have, right? To know if you have one solution, two solutions, three solutions, right? Do that, all right? But just to save time for now, all right, we're going to jump in and just go right into solving. Now, what we're looking at here, right, is we have multiple pieces in our problem, right? And if it's equal to zero, right, we should be able to use that zero property, all right, to get started with the problem. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Now, before I get into any examples, what we want to do first, right, is identify what kind of function I have, that therefore I can anticipate the number of solutions, right? So when I look at number one, I should know that this is a linear equation, right? No exponents, no bars, right? Plain Jane, all right, that kind of thing, right? Okay, very boring. So we know I'm sure should be looking for one solution, all right? And so let's go from there. So now, zero property, what minus 10 is 0? And we know the answer is 10. So 10 minus 10 is 0. So whatever's behind my hand has to be 10. So that's 5x. Now, this gets us to a multiplication problem, right? Now, all right, 5 times what is 10? All right, and we know that 5 times 2 is 10. So that means x is 2. All right, so there's our solution. Now, once again, we should always be able to check, right? So if I get 2, I should be able to go back and plug it in and see what happens, right? So 5 times 2 minus 10 is 0. Well, 5 times 2 is 10. 10 minus 10 is, in fact, 0. So notice that you have a fail-safe, right? So once you get your answer, we can go back and plug it in. And this is a lot of the evaluation and the verifying that we did first semester coming back into play, right? So once you have your answer, you should know if it is correct or not, okay? You don't have to let it be a mystery. Okay, now let's go to number 2. Number 2, I see the absolute value bars. Okay, so this is absolute value. So I'm expecting 2 solutions. It doesn't mean I'm going to get 2 solutions every time, right? We know sometimes I can get 1, sometimes it could be no solution, but I'm expecting 2. All right, so once again, it's equal to 0. So let's use that 0 property. So what minus 21 is 0? We know the answer is 21, right? So then that means that 7 times the absolute value of x is equal to 21. Now, once again, now it's a multiplication problem, right? 7 times what is 21? 7 times 3 is 21. So that means the absolute value of x is equal to 3. Now, what numbers have an absolute value of 3? That would be positive 3 and negative 3, right? So x could be negative 3, x could be positive 3. And so once again, we could just cover this up, right? Whatever's in here could be negative 3 or 3. In this case, it's just x, so I'm finished, right? And like our last lesson where we had to do a little bit more, right? Because we had more than just x in those grouping symbols. All right, moving on to number 3. Now, once again, remember, if I'm going a little too fast for you, you can pause the video, write a little bit, turn the video back on. Okay, so don't let me, all right, keep you from keeping up, right? So pause the video if you need to, all right, and kind of go back and forth like that. So now, looking at number 3, I see it's got a power of 2, right? So this is a quadratic problem, so I'm expecting 2 solutions, all right? Now, once again, using that 0 property, what minus 12 is 0? We know that has to be 12, all right? So we'll take my hand away. That means 3 times x squared has to be 12. Now, once again, we're back to a multiplication problem. 3 times what is 12? 3 times 4 is 12. So that means x squared has to be 4. And then now, okay, what number squared is 4? 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. So x equals negative 2, x equals positive 2. All right. So you can see that we're just taking all these little pieces that we've worked on and putting them all together in one problem. All right, so number 4, my exponent is an x, so I know this is an exponential. All right, so now, once again, using that 0 property, what minus 4 is 4? That would be 4, okay? So 4 times 2 to the x is 4. Now we're back to a multiplication problem, right? 4 times what is 4? 4 times 1 is 4, so 2 to the x is 1. Now, 2 to what power is 1? All right, and that would be the 0 power, right? So 2 to the 0 is 1. All right, and that's how we proceed, right? Okay, so we just keep going through this, right? And once again, hopefully you're going to internalize this process, right? What kind of function is it? Is it equal to 0? multiplication division problem, right? And we go from there. All right, so now linear problem, once again, no exponents, no bars. All right, now 9 minus what is 0? 9 minus 9 is 0. So that means 9x has to be 9. Now, once again, we're to a multiplication problem, right? 9 times what is 9? 9 times 1 is 9. So x is 1. Okay. All right, and that's it. And once again, you can always go back and plug it back in, right? So I didn't do that on these problems, right? But if you go back and plug it in, and this is really nice if you have your calculator, and maybe I'll show you this in just a moment, right? To pull out your calculator. Actually, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna grab my calculator. I'm gonna pause the video. I'll be right back. All right, and so this is one of the reasons why we like these calculators, right? So I'm gonna go back to number 3 here. And so notice I can take -2 and I'm gonna plug it in. And so I can type it just like it looks, and I'm just gonna put that -2 in parentheses, right? So it should look exactly like what I have here, right? The only difference is I'm going to replace the x with my number here, and notice I'm going to hit enter. And I get 0, so 0 equals 0. I know that's right. So even if you're not checking it on paper, right, you can do that very quickly, all right, on your calculator. So same thing on number 4 here, right? So 4, open my parentheses, 2, and then remember, this is your power key right here, this little caret upside down V here. So 2, then I'm going to replace x with 0. I'm going to scroll out of that, right, close my parentheses, minus 4. And that's 0 equals 0. So it's a really good habit to have your calculator out. Once you get your solution, go back and plug it back in. So same thing right here, right? X is 1. So 9 minus 9, open parentheses, plug in 1, right? And I get 0. So it's really easy to check on your calculator, right? And that's one of the reasons we like these view screen calculators, because you can see this should look exactly like what I have here, except for I'm replacing X. Now, the hard part is there is not absolute value on your calculator. So when you do this, you have to think about, like, what does that mean, right? So on this one, if I take the absolute value of -3, right, if I were to write it out, it would look like that. So what you have to do is take the absolute value before you put it in your calculator. So 7, open parentheses, the absolute value of -3 is 3, and then minus 21 like that. Okay, so the only thing you can't do on your calculator is the absolute value. So you have to take that absolute value and then put it in parentheses on your calculator. Okay. Let's keep going. All right, so now looking at problem 6 here, all right? 16 minus what is 0? 16 minus 16 is 0. So that means 4 times the absolute value of x has to be 16. And then 4 times what is 16? 4 times 4 is 16. So the absolute value of x is equal to 4. Now, what numbers have an absolute value of 4? -4 and +4. So x could be -4. X could be +4 like that. All right. So just taking a peek at my problems here, making sure I want to cover everything. All right. So moving down to number 7. All right. X squared. So I know this is quadratic. I'm expecting 2 solutions. All right. 20 minus what is 0? 20 minus 20 is 0. So 5 times x squared has to be 20. Now it's a multiplication question. 5 times what is 20? 5 times 4 is 20. So x squared would equal to 4. All right, and then, now what number squared could be 4? -2 times -2 could be 4. 2 times 2 could be 4. So x could be -2. X could be +2. And there are my 2 solutions, all right? Okay, so moving on to my next problem, number 8 here. All right. Okay. Now, when I look at this, right, my x is my exponent, so it's an exponential, expecting 1 solution. All right. -27 plus what is 0? -27 plus 27 is 0. So all of that. So 9 times 3 to the x has to be +27. All right. 9 times what is 27? 9 times 3 is 27. So 3 to the x has to be 3. Now, 3 to what power is 3? And that would be 1. Right? So remember, this is really just a lot of like your basic skills, right? Your basic math facts, right? And that's really what we want it to be. Now, we will eventually talk about like how do I use my calculator if it's the math fact I don't know. All right, we'll get to that a little bit as we go through some other examples in class. So, all right, moving on to number 9. Now, a couple of things about number 9. One is it is linear, right? Just an x, no exponents, right? No bars, right? So I know I'm expecting 1 solution. Now, the other thing is, remember, this means division. Okay, that means division, but we don't get to that till the second step. We're still going to use that 0 property first. All right, so what minus 5 is 0? 5 minus 5 is 0. So that means x divided by 4 is 5. Okay, so now instead of doing a multiplication problem like I just did here, now I have a division problem. Now, what number, when you divide it by 4, gives you 5? All right, so what number divided by 4 gives you 5? That number would be 20. All right, so x is 20. All right, and you can put that in just like that on your calculator, right? Okay, so you can put in 20 divided by 4, right? So 20 divided by 4 minus 5, just like that, you get 0. If you want to use the fraction key, right, there's your fraction key. You can make it look just like the problem, right? 20, tick down to 4, right, minus 5. You get 0. Okay, so I know my answer is correct. All right, so looking at problem 10 here. All right, I see those bars. It's absolute value, right? So I'm expecting 2 solutions. So now, using that 0 property, what plus 40 is 0? Negative 40 is 0. So 5 times the absolute value of x is equal to negative 40. Okay, now, the multiplication question. 5 times what is negative 40? 5 times negative 8 is negative 40. So the absolute value of x is equal to negative 8. And then what we know is once we get to this step, an absolute value, and then it can only be an absolute value. It can't be anything on the outside. Okay, so I can't make this determination until I get to this step where there's nothing on the outside of the absolute value. There's going to be something inside it, that's okay, but nothing on the outside. The absolute value cannot equal to a negative number, so this is a no solution. All right, looking at number 11, my power of 2. This is quadratic. Okay, it's a quadratic, so I'm expecting 2 solutions. All right, so now what minus 36 is 0? 36 minus 36 is 0. So whatever's behind my hand has to be 36, right? So negative 3x squared has to be 36. Now we're to that multiplication problem, right? So negative 3 times what is 36? Negative 3 times negative 12, right? So a negative times negative gives me a positive, right? So negative 3 times negative 12, all right, is 36. So x squared equals a negative 12. Now, same thing here. Notice our x squared, our quadratic, is equal to a negative number. That means it is a no solution problem. But remember, we can't make that determination until we've kind of cleared everything on the outside. All right, let's look at problem 12. Okay, exponential. X is my exponent. I'm expecting 1 solution. All right, so let's use that 0 property right now. So what minus 24 is 0? 24 minus 24 is 0. So 3 times 2 to the x is 24. Now we're to multiplication problem. 3 times what is 24? 3 times 8 is 24. So 2 to the x is equal to 8. All right, so now, once again, going through our powers, right? 2 to the 0 power is 1. 2 to the first power is 2. 2 squared is 4. All right, 2 to the third power is 8. So that means that this would be x equals 3. All right, so notice there was really nothing new in this lesson, right? We were just taking a lot of things that we've discussed, put them all together, all right, into this problem. All right, so have the problems highlighted or circled or your questions ready to go for class. We'll get to those next time. See you then.